And now we come to the end of the Christmas season. We began with some poor Jews being called by angels to come to see the Messiah. And we end by some very wealthy strangers from far distant lands coming to worship the Messiah. One wonders what we are to make of this dichotomy, this parallel between the first visitors and the last in the Christmas event. I'm sure the first Christians would have had no trouble understanding today's celebration. For the first Christians were Jewish people for the most part, and they began after Jesus' ascension every first day of the week to reminisce about his time with them, and then to break the bread and share the cup of the Eucharist. But since they were Jews, they would have understood completely what this visit of these strangers from foreign lands was about. Because as we heard in the first reading, and as they had heard all through their lives, the prophets were continually telling them, God has chosen you as his special people, not just for your sake, but for the sake of all peoples. Jerusalem will be a place where the nations of the world will come and stream and bring their children and bring their gifts, and they will worship in the temple where we recognize the special presence of God. The early Christians would have understood this feast completely because they knew their Bible. They knew what the prophets had said about the coming Messiah and that he was coming for all of God's creation, not just for the chosen few. Today, the same Christian community has to listen to these readings and apply them to their own times. And I think that's what Pope Francis is doing during the 10 years of his ministry among us as the Bishop of Rome. He's completely telling us to be careful of becoming too exclusive, of sort of circling the wagons, protecting our faith life. When Jesus wants us to open the doors and get out into the world and tell everybody the good news of his coming and the repercussions that eventuate from that arrival among us of God himself. There's always that tendency for people to preserve what they have and not share it. The Jewish people had the same tendency, even though they were called from the very beginning, from Abraham. Your descendants, God said, will be like the stars of the heavens. But they had a tendency to close in, perhaps protect themselves, but in so doing, they kept captive the God who had come and revealed himself to them. The early Christians in those days would have known what these scriptures meant. Pope Francis is telling us today what these scriptures mean. The final question is, what do these scriptures mean for me? For my life of faith, my life with Jesus. If Jesus had come today in our own times, he would not have said to us that he was setting us as a light to the world. He said, I am the light of the world. And in the next breath he said, and you are the light of the world. You're to be set on a lampstand so everybody can see you, see me. If he came today, he probably would have said, I have come to share my DNA with you. You are now my brothers and sisters. We share the same Father. Take the life that I have given you and share it out with all that you meet. I have come for everyone, not just for you. And so the end of the Christmas story brings us to mission, to keep the life of Christ alive by living it in our own lives and not hiding it under a bushel, he said, but putting out for all to see. The Christmas gift was Jesus the Messiah, sharing the very life of God with us. We are not to hoard that gift. We are to give it away. That's the message of Christmas and Epiphany.